Good morning, buenos dias, guten tag. Welcome to another episode of Movers and Shakers, Strange New Worlds, an exploration of the episode number 4, Among the Lotus Eaters. It is my privilege to be your host, Chris Pabon. I will be joined very shortly from the side of shore leave by my co-host, Josh Pritchett, and we will have, in about 20 minutes, a visit by a very special guest with unique insight into the episode that we just saw. But meanwhile, till we get there, thank you so very much for joining us once more for a recap of the program. And I will start us off and be joined very shortly by my co-host Josh Pritchett. We start off with the Enterprise in a seemingly tranquil moment in where there is some time for some personal time with Captains Patel and Pike, but this does not go very well because Captain Pike is concerned that he is influencing negatively the career of Captain Battelle, and it sort of reflects in on challenges and couples who professional careers face. But that moment is interrupted when they are summoned by the Starfleet to go back to Rigel 7. Rigel 7, which is an example of when away parties don't always go well, and this one was particularly disastrous for Captain Pike, where Spock was wounded, he lost 3 crewmen, and there's something about the atmosphere that prevents them from doing scans, and so they have to do flybys. And they've noticed carved into the garden of a large building is the sign of the Federation, the Delta sign. So they realize there's been some cultural contamination, and as Captain Pike tells his crew, they have to go fix their own mess. And well, at the start of the episode, we had a recap by Captain Pike. Now we have, for the first time in Strange New Worlds, a second recap in the same episode, this one by Ortegas, which is long overdue, and it looks like she's going to be part of the away party until Spock informs them that she will not, because her expertise is needed in guiding the ship through the treacherous asteroid field around the planet. So the away party now is just Pike, who's piloting the shuttle, Dr. Mabenga, and Laan, and the reason why they have been selected is because, if need be, they are good in hand-to-hand combat, as we've seen Laan many times in the previous season, and we saw the Doctor in the opening of this season. And so they make it to the planet, and to avoid cultural contamination even further, they land the shuttle about 20 clicks away from the structure. And it's going to be a long walk, and as they're going, they begin to experience some weird symptoms. Laan hears a ringing in her ears, and then she experiences loss of time. And then at this point, the Doctor asks Pike to be turned back. Are we facing some medical incident that we're not aware of? And Pike says, no, we got to continue going forward, partly perhaps because of his own feelings of like, I had to fix this mess. And so then the Doctor begins to experience it until finally, when they're outside the palace, they get captured by some guards in patrol, and they get taken to the inside of the palace, and they find that the new leader of the planet is Zach, who was Captain Pike's former yeoman. And so Pike is entirely surprised because he thinks that he was dead, and Zach, rightfully so, because it's been about 6 years, says, you left me here, and he says, now I'm going to leave you here. And he orders them put into cages outside for the night. And inside the cages, they realize that they're experiencing time lapses and they're forgetting who they are, which was the intent of Zach all along. And the next morning, they wake up in the cage and they do not remember who they are. And they just know that they're being asked to go to a stone quarry to do forced labor. And at first, they don't want to do it, but one of the locals convinces them it'll be much better if you do it. You just experienced a bad forgetting. And so this forgetting seems to be something that's happens a lot. And they get taken to the stone quarry where they start to break stone. And I'm joined by my co-host, who is on site at shore leave this morning, Josh Pritchett. Josh, do you want to take us from there forward from the stone quarry?
Hi, Chris. Thank you. Yeah, so Pike and Binga and Leon are doing this manual labor, and it occurs to Pike that, wait a minute, these are not the hands of someone used to doing this kind of labor. I'm not this stoneworker guy. And suddenly Pike, Leon, and Mbenga fight back when they realize that they actually outnumber the guards, they fight back. They still don't remember who they are. And Luan gets injured, but something in Mbenga kicks in. He realizes that he is able to treat her. So he hasn't necessarily lost the skills he's developed over the years as a doctor, but he can't remember who he is. And back on the Enterprise, everyone on the ship is beginning to experience the same memory losses. And Spock determines that there's some sort of exotic radiation coming from somewhere in the planet that is causing this. So they try to pull away from the planet, but the memory losses are still getting worse. Ortiz is, forgetting who she is or why she's on the bridge. Everyone's forgetting why they're there. They don't know what's going on. They're starting to panic. Even Spock is affected. Meanwhile, back down on the planet, Pike realizes that there's something blocking their memories, but apparently, according to the person that's helping them, the people to keep their memories. And Pike wonders why, and apparently there's this myth of a hidden chest that contains everyone's memories, but the person who's helping them doesn't really want to remember because he's not sure if it's too awful or not. It's kind of this sort of Stockholm syndrome thing. Those of you who are familiar with the book series Soldier of the Mist by Gene Wolfe will probably see a lot of similarities to this, but we'll get into that later. Meanwhile, Ortiz and Spock are the only two people left on the bridge. None of them can remember anything. Ortiz remembers she is mad at Spock for something, and she just abruptly leaves the bridge because she's kind of in a panic, and she doesn't know how to operate the turbolift. So she tells the turbolift to take her home. So it takes her back to deck 6 and drops her off there. Meanwhile, there's people, including Nurse Chaplet, are just walking around in a daze. And then the computer shows Erica where her quarters are, and she's trying to remember who she is. And the asteroids that are in this belt that encircles the planet start hitting the Enterprise, and she starts to panic and asks the computer to make it stop. And it says, "Do you wish to make a course correction?" And she remembers, well, she doesn't really remember, but the computer tells her that her name is Lieutenant Erica Ortiz, that she's the helms person, and she starts repeating this to herself. Chris?
Because base memory or emotional memory does not seem to be affected by the memory loss, she does manage to successfully go back to the bridge and maneuver the Enterprise out of the asteroid field, even managing to use the phaser banks to blow through a large asteroid that's in the path. Meanwhile, back on the planet, in escaping the stone quarry, La'an is wounded and taken back to the person who's helping them place where he lives, and they're introduced to a totem where they are told the story about the casket of memory. So they go back, them being M'Benga and Pike, in an effort to retrieve their memories because M'Benga believes he can save La'an, to the palace, and they fight their way back in successfully. And M'Benga provides cover while Pike goes in there, and he confronts Zach. And Zach is very mad, but and he seems gleeful that Pike is in this situation, that he lost his memory, but disappointed because he had hoped that Pike would meander aimlessly without his memories, and reminiscent of perhaps what Zach did. And so Zach tells him that he will eventually recover his memories because he's inside the palace, and the palace is made of an ore that prevents the radiation from the asteroid, because he reveals all of these memory losses is because an asteroid from the asteroid field came crashing down to the planet, and its radiation has been affecting everyone adversely. That because he's in the planet, he will remember soon enough. But Pike is very angry, and he's on the cusp of killing him, especially when he discovers the casket of memories is just the survival casket that got left behind when they had to flee the planet 6 years ago. But he recovers his memory just in time to prevent himself from killing Zach, and he tells him, the Federation will deal with you. And the next scene, we see that they have brought La'an to the palace, and M'Benga is treating her, and the person who's taking care of them has recovered his memories and says, thank you so very much. remember I had a family. These are memories I shouldn't lose. And they're going to go back to the ship now. And we see the ship has everyone's fully recovered because thanks to Erica, once they blew past the asteroid field and were away from the influence of the rocks, which ironically Spock had placed them there to save them, they all regain their memories and realizing what the problem is, Spock then creates a harmonics field around the shields that prevents them from suffering memory loss. And at the end, Pike is saying, "Yeah, I'm going to do this. I don't think it's really breaking with the evolution of the species on this planet because it was already interrupted when the asteroid landed." And Spock's like, "Okay, yeah, I sort of see your rationale behind this. It's not really interrupting the Prime Directive since their evolution had artificially been blocked to begin with." And you see that Pike has ordered 2 shuttles to go down to pick up the massive asteroid that is contaminating the atmosphere. And then Erica swoops in and uses the larger mass of the Enterprise to pick it up fully and throw it back away into the asteroid field, thus freeing them from the influence. And then finally, we have the final scene where there's a reconciliation between Pike and Batel, where Pike says, in a very emotional scene, "Listen, I was wrong. Like, you were the one who brought me back. We're better together than separate. I was very sorry to push you away." And he says, "Will you forgive me?" And she says, "Well, that depends on how the next 30 minutes goes." And scene. So, Josh,
So
we have about 8 minutes before our special guest arrives. But what did you like of the episode?
Well, like I was saying, I'm sorry, folks. I'm here at shore leave. It's a little noisy in here. Okay, I like the fact that they were drawing upon inspiration from the book series Soldier of the Mist by Gene Wolfe. Basically, the premise of that series was about a warrior that every night when he went to sleep would lose all of his previous memories, and he had to carry this scroll that would tell him who and what he was. And he still remembered how to be a warrior, but he had to remind himself each day, and he always had to write down the things he had done the day before, so that he would know what not Neil Gaiman. Very impressed with that. I also I like the fact that it was a callback to the original series, to the first ever pilot episode that they did on Star Trek called The Cage, which is when we saw Captain Pike and the crew of the original Enterprise. So I like that. I really liked Erica's mantra, "I am Lieutenant Erica Ortiz and I fly the ship." So I think people are going to be calling that out to her at future conventions. I thought it was sweet. Best.
So what I loved about the episode is that finally we had a Pike-centric episode. Here on Movers and Shakers last week, I said that one thing we needed was a tragedy between Batel and Pike, so that this would engineer some more screen time for Captain Pike. And so it actually did happen, except it didn't kill her. It was a breakup, which is perhaps even worse. So Pike is the emotional center of the show. And once again, it showed here how he brought the pathos in how he deals with a struggling relationship in which both parties are very busy. And he brought the gravitas to the episode, which I thought was really good. And then the second thing I liked about the episode was finally we get a focus on Ortegas, because it seemed like up until now, everyone has gotten a bit of a focus except her. And I love the scene where she's justifiably so annoyed at Spock because she does not get to go down on away parties that often. Like, because she's so vital to the function of the ship, she gets stuck on the ship a lot. And so, that moment where Spock senses how annoyed she is, and they have that heart-to-heart, and he tells her, like, "I'm working on this." It's just, I thought, a very cool moment to show us that, people on the Enterprise can get mad because they don't get to do something they've been wanting to do. There's still personal frustrations in carrying out your duties. So I thought that was a very nice real-time shot into what goes on inside the episode. And I also like the fact that the reference that not all away missions are clean. Clearly, things went really wrong in Rigel 7 6 years ago. We always see like okay, this is how we're going to do things, and this is how we're going to solve issues. There was no solving issues here. I mean, Spock's bleeding out and has to be taken to Vega Colony. They've lost 3 crewmen. Bad memories are left. Like away missions don't always go perfectly, and you get the perception from watching Star Trek that they always do, but oh no, like this shows you that sometimes they go really, really wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't really think I had anything bad to say about this episode. I was very impressed with it. Did you have any complaints?
Well, I wasn't quite sure about the tablets because I thought it was a great idea when Spock said, okay, we're going to have our tablets and that way we'll remember who we are and what functions we do. And then all of a sudden the tablet is not working for him. So that part for me was unclear. Was it sort of a situation where you had to tap on it to get back to the original screen? I mean, I understand why the radiation affected personal memories, but I thought the tablet was a brilliant idea until it wasn't. And so it wasn't clear to me why the tablet idea wasn't working. And then after that, I would say it's not in. Maybe it's because it's genetically augmented, but I thought that given they said that her wound was so severe, that La'an might have passed away from the wound before
that
being
was
taken to the
another thing about I'm not saying that they.
And it's very busy at Shore Leave. Shout out to Shore Leave, where Josh is on site. So we're just experiencing some technical difficulties. He will be back with us shortly. But yes, as Josh was alluding to, perhaps the consequences to her wound should have been more, but she's still with us, which is great, and possibly because she's physically augmented, which might explain why she was the first one to suffer the adverse consequences of the radiation because of her enhanced senses. And Josh is back now with us.
Yeah, sorry about that, folks.
And we're still experiencing just some minor technical difficulties. Please excuse us. As I said once again, it's a sign of the success of Shore Leave that
internet is really spotty. Yeah, so as far as it goes, again, I was starting to see.
And we are still experiencing some minor technical difficulties. Josh, my friend, we're just having a little trouble hearing you. All right. We are about 1 minute from our special guest. And please stay by with us because you're going to really like this. If you've ever felt the need to ask, what would a director, why did you do this in this episode? Or like, what were you thinking? Now is your chance because we have a very special guest with us who has just joined us, I understand. Today on Movers and Shakers, as I mentioned, we have someone who this year has directed, count them, 7 different episodes across 6 different small screen series. Some of you may recognize him from his work on the Blair Witch Project, but today we are here to talk with him about his work on Among the Lotus Eaters, the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Viewers of all ages and genders, I would like to introduce you to director Eduardo Sanchez, who's joining us here on Movers and Shakers. Gracias por venir a vernos, Eduardo.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So we have a bunch of questions for you. And so we'll just jump right in. And we're hoping that as people watching the show, they might have some questions as well. You're the director of one of this season's 10 episodes.
Yeah.
Once you're told you're going to be directing, are you given an outline of the direction the series will be taking for the entire season? Are you given instructions about where you should take one of the characters in this particular episode? I mean, how does it work when you're told that you're a director of one of the episodes for this season?
Well, I mean, I was really happy. The first thing, I'd been like a Star Trek fan all my life, and it was just like kind of a dream come true to be able to do this. But when you first get it, you're not really given much information other than like where it's shooting and the dates. Um, but they immediately, so they sent me a bunch of stuff from season one. Like a bunch of the episodes, whatever was cut together, because they had, it had already been a while since they had finished season one. It hadn't aired yet, so they had most of the episodes at least, rough cut. A lot of the, some of the effects were temporary and stuff, but mostly it was me. It was that, and then the scripts for my episode, and the rest of them. So you just read a lot, and then especially to catch up on season one because it hadn't come out yet. And then season two, the only thing that I was told beforehand was that that this was going to be Pike's return, because Anson had been away on a paternity leave. And this is the first episode where he was kind of a full-time member of the cast. So I was excited, and then shortly thereafter, I got the script and was able to read the script, and I really loved the fact that it was kind of definitely an old school type of original series kind of episode, and I was really happy to do that because that the original series was the original the hook that got me into Star Trek, like most people.
How much time were you given to film the episode? Do you have multiple sets running at the same time with which you delegate to assistant directors? Can you talk to us about how it is to film the process to film the episode?
No, the only time you do second unit, like so where somebody else is shooting stuff is like when you don't have enough time, and also like if there's like a big action sequence, sometimes the second unit will go and take the do all the driving stunts and stuff like that. But on this, even the fighting, I was there for everything. The only thing that was done second unit and was when after I left, there was a couple of scenes that weren't able to be fit in, so they had to shoot them without me. But otherwise, I was there for everything, and but yeah, it is kind of rare for a show to do that. And I think they gave us, I want to say 9 days. I think it was 9 days, 9 and 10 or 10-day episode. I could look at the schedule, but I think it was, it was definitely generous. But we were, going through some days where we knew it was going to be tough. The assistant director George and I were just like, there were some days we're like, man, this is gonna be a long, we got to work fast these days. But you always have that on shows. There's always at least 1 or 2 days where you just have to be slamming and kind of jamming the whole time. But it was good, and it was a big learning curve for me as far as like working on the volume with that projection system that just. First of all, it takes a long time. You have to light it properly and stuff. But just me learning and being on there, and just kind of like being, because you're kind of in awe when you first see it. So kind of getting off of that. Oh my God, I'm in the volume. I'm in a volume. That took a little while as well.
So obviously you film a lot for the episode, and there's probably some that just left on the cutting room floor because they can't fit it in. Were there any scenes you wish you could have kept for the episode?
No, I mean no, there wasn't anything. I mean, it was very. You asked about like, was there any deleted scenes?
Yeah.
No, I don't think that. I honestly, I haven't watched the whole show because I'm on vacation, and so I watched a little bit of it because I had seen basically.
And thank you for joining us on vacay, by the way.
Yeah, no problems. It was. I don't think they cut any scenes. I mean, the last time I had seen it was, with kind of like just pre-visual effects on the, on the effect sequences. So I kind of went back and like looked at all the, the effect stuff that I had never seen before. But I don't think they cut any scenes. I mean, they might have cut some stuff shorter, but I haven't, like I said, I haven't like forensically gone through the episode yet. I mean, I think especially in this show, like there's, there's almost everything is important. You know what I mean? So I think they don't overstuff the episodes. A lot of times on TV shows, it's meant to be a little long. It's meant to be like some things are meant to be cut out later. And I don't think on Star Trek at least on my episode, they didn't have any like superfluous scenes that could have been just easily discarded. So
In the episode, there's a great moment between the characters of Tegas and Spock, where Tegas is very annoyed that she can't go on the away mission. And was it your direction to tell her to play it mad at him? Did the script perhaps originally tell her to be resigned? I mean, can you talk to us a little bit about that scene and how it developed?
that scene was, it's like all the main characters, talking to each other. It's like the hardest kind of scenes to put together and to cover because, everybody needs a close up and, there's little moments in each of in the scene for each of the characters. But definitely it was more about, Pike and Ortegas and then Spock and Ortegas. So no, I mean, TV directing is, a lot of it, the script gives you an idea of what the character is doing. Like, I think gives you enough. And also when you come into a series, usually, these characters, first of all, these actors had already been doing this for already a season and, 3 episodes before me. So I'm not going to go in there and tell them to do a certain thing that is opposite the script. I mean, I'm assuming that they've read the script and they are at least, caught up, what I'm saying? And they've had, they've given it some thought. These are all professionals who, really study the script, and most of them do. I mean, some of them are amazing at just kind of winging it. But, because I've seen it all. I've seen people who are like really dedicated and other people who just kind of, it comes natural to them. But, there is a process when you have the script to go through. They go through the script even before the directors get there. They go through the scripts. They talk to the writers. They talk to the showrunners sometimes about like, can my character do this, or they wouldn't say this. And even before scenes, you always see an actor or two talking to the writer and then coming to me and the script supervisor saying, we're going to change these lines, we want to do this, do that. Sometimes they come to me first. It depends on the situation, but there's always a little bit of that. But I think for for that scene, it was just it's kind of Ortega's, like, she's ready to go and on this mission, and it's just like my thing was just center on her, get plenty of stuff on her, get a lot of close-ups on her because it's really her. And then I like the whole, Pike's little playfulness of like, hey, I'm not that bad a pilot, remember. And then the last part, where Spock kind of, ticks her off a little bit, and he's like, oh, in his own way, in his own, cool way. But it's like you do a rehearsal, you do kind of a dry run rehearsal. And as a director, you adjust things that you need. But most of the time, the actors are coming with all this backstory and all this experience. And unless it's something where, like, I see something in the script that isn't being done, then that's when I go in and say, hey, we need to give us this little beat that's in the script because this ties into this later on or whatever, if they miss it. But usually, I mean, like I said, at this level, everybody is such a professional, and it's very rare when you have to really guide an actor step by step through a scene. I mean, there's a lot of collaboration, like in the scene later with Ortegas, when she's freaking out and it's all handheld, and I wanted to do, this, it's almost like there's thunder, like lightning. It's kind of like like almost like a haunted house scene. Right. Her and I kind of let, she was weird. We talked about it. We talked about it with the writer, Davey, who was there all the time, a great guy. And, we were like, I'm just going to shoot it long, or we can edit around it. Don't worry about making it make sense. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to be freaking out. So there's kind of a surreal kind of feeling that I want to bring to it. Like, we're trying to get inside your head. So we play, so there is things that you discuss and they ask for your opinions, but most of the time, like I always say, the actors are automatic. not that they're opposed to notes, but they just give you what what it says in the script, and then unless you have a different idea of it, you kind of you do two or three takes and you're done.
So following up on that thread and sticking with Spock and Ortega's, how do you give them instructions, for example, when in the scenes they're piloting the ship? Because obviously, as viewers, we see like a view screen with things happening, but they're just looking at a blank screen. And I'm assuming you're probably someplace behind them.
Yeah.
So do you give them the directions as in like, okay, now there's a big asteroid coming, or now you're veering to the left, and do you edit that out luego in post-production? How does that work?
Well, I mean, look, this is again, this is not my show. Like, I come into it as almost like as I'm there just to kind of lead things for a little while and then leave it all right for the next person to come in. So they have a system. So the way they do it is that the AD and I and if the writer needs to be in there, we kind of figure out a path. Like, okay, we're going to go to the right, and then we're going to the left, and then we're going to go up, and then there's going to be a sharp, there's going to be an asteroid, and the AD usually will kind of sit off stage, off camera, and kind of just give them those directions, and then I can kind of talk to the AD and between takes and say, oh, stretch this moment a little longer, or let her play with this a little more, or go get to this closer, or surprise them with this. And then, you're talking to the camera operators about, because that's the same thing too. Like when there's movement, we want the camera to react. Like, there's a little bit of of inertia inside the ship. And then, the stuff on the bridge is amazing because they have this, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's like this crazy camera head. Like they mount the camera to this head on the end of a crane, and the camera can do it's a crazy system that can do all kinds of movements. It can twirl. It's like almost like a 360 kind of thing, like a gyroscope. So you can do things on that rig that you can't really do on other rigs. So we were playing with it a lot. We were doing kind of like the sideways, like they used a couple of shots where you're kind of going sideways on them, like they're turning, which I thought was kind of cool. But it helps to have that kind of tool especially in the bridge, because there's so many different levels, and having any kind of movement with like a conventional dolly would be, nightmarish. And it's a big set, I mean, they thought it through really clearly. So that's the way that works. We basically give them verbal directions, and and they've they're on Star Trek, so I'm sure that they've done this plenty of times as far as like looking at nothing on the screen and kind of imagining things.
So in this episode, you also have a guest star, which is Melanie Scrofano, and you mentioned that you had 9 days to film the episode. How much time are you given to film with the guest?
It depends. It depends on how big the role is. Sometimes you just finish in 1 day. Sometimes it's a half a day. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2 scenes, and it depends. So I think the stuff on the planet was kind of its own thing. It was some on the AR wall and some just in the soundstage, and so I mean, you have enough time. I mean, you're not really rushing through those things. I mean, they definitely, I think in television, the level of guest stars is the professionalism is so high. Like, again, you don't really run into any issues as far as like people not knowing lines, and they've done, these people have done this a million times. So there's a certain professionalism, and it's just great to see, like, when somebody comes in on these shows, and it's the first time they're on this show, and I feel like I'm kind of I have something in common with them, because it might be the first episode I've been doing. Usually it's the first episode I'm doing of a series, so I'm kind of like a newcomer there too. So I definitely would try to make them as comfortable as possible, and and some of them are super pros, some of them are a little nervous, but that's really the fun of for me as an incoming director, is the casting of the supporting roles, because obviously all the main roles are already cast, and it's not like you're going to recast Spock, or anybody, so basically, that's where you have the most power. So it's kind of fun, just to see, who's out there, what the talent base is, around the city that you're shooting in. And it's just interesting, and also just different takes on the characters. I really enjoy that part of it.
So you've worked on a lot of episodes, especially this year. I counted 7 so far. You're a very busy man. Is there a difference between how you approach working on a set that has like this, a lot of green screen or the AI screen, versus an episode of, let's say, of the upcoming Dolores Roach or even Lucifer, for example, where you might have more of a traditional stage setting and it might be easy to indicate to the actors this is where your mark is. Can you describe a little bit the difference in directing each setting?
I mean, look, it's every job is different. That's kind of the challenge and also the fun part of like, you're the new guy in town, you're the new kid in school. But you're the director, so they really definitely treat the directors very well, and they know the situation, and most of the time you're away from home, and there's just very good people around usually. I mean, there's definitely been some times where everybody's stressed out, and it's kind of like every man and woman for themselves, but usually everybody's pretty cool, and and things are kind of, there's a good system in place. So you have to kind of, each job, whether it's Star Trek or something like Queen of the South, which was, like a low, a little bit lower budget, kind of different kind of, action show. You kind of have to go in and figure out what they've done before. And, you have to become a little bit of, you have to study the episodes previous to yours. And also if there's seasons before, try to watch as much as possible just to kind of get the rhythm of the show and what they're trying to do. And then it's basically just go in, start breaking down the script. The AD, assistant director, they are very much a partner. So usually, the ADs on these shows are phenomenal. I don't think I've run to any shows that where the AD was just not working. I mean, I think they're all really great. And also, if you come in a little later in the season, they've already done episodes, so they can tell you what's going on. Like, they give you the inside scoop on some of the personnel if there are any issues. Usually they're like, oh no, everybody's cool, whatever. But sometimes, well, this person, is kind of hard to get out of their trailer, or this person likes more rehearsals, or this person, has a little bit of an attitude. Sometimes it gets that kind of personal, but that's kind of just between professionals, just trying to make the job as smooth as possible. But like I said, usually, everybody is very kind of, everybody, the one thing that all sets have in common that I've found, no matter, whether it's, Budapest or Vancouver or anywhere in the United States, is that like, when it comes down to it, most of the people are really happy to be there. Like there's always, the hours are long and there's always some kind of disgruntled kind of attitude sometimes, but even in the longest days, like, the people on set are truly like my heroes, because like, they just bring this energy that that is beyond even me, because I go in and shoot for, I prep for a couple of weeks and then I shoot for a couple of weeks, and by the time, my head, and I know that directing has to, you have a lot of questions to answer and stuff. It's a little bit different than, most of the other positions, but still, we're still working the long hours. You're still away from your family. And, and when I leave, I take at least a few weeks off, usually, more, and just kind of decompress while, the crew goes right to the next episode, with the new director, like the next day. So, again, like I'm really inspired by the people that I work around. And there's always, like Blair Witch, I think kind of ties a lot of things. Like people always come to me and talk to me about Blair Witch or some of my other past work, and a lot of times now I've done a lot of television, so I usually know at least one or two people on the crew somewhere, or acting, or somewhere that I've worked with before. But I love kind of going in and figuring out the power dynamic of the set, and what the actors want and how the actors are, and how the producers are, and kind of learning the system of the DP and the camera people. What kind of system do they like? And but and that's regardless of the size of the show, you have to do that. And then with Star Trek, obviously it becomes something. You have, it's a science fiction show, so you're always usually dealing with some kind of green screen. There's some kind of something that has to be replaced later. You're talking about bigger scope stuff for this episode, which I thought was great. They let the directors kind of lay out the space sequences with the Enterprise. So that was like the most amazing thing for me, was like sitting down and doing like little storyboards of the freaking Enterprise, with going through the rocks and stuff outside the planet, orbiting the planet, the asteroids. And to me, that was, because I storyboard a lot of stuff, but I never thought I would be storyboarding like the Starship Enterprise in a real show, in a real Star Trek show. So that was a trip. But so, whether it's, like I said, whether it's low budget or high budget, the challenges are kind of still the same. Most shows, you're just going, you're going at 100 miles an hour the whole time, because they never give you enough time. There's very rarely where you're just like have short days or whatever. But again, the energy off the crew, and especially on Star Trek, where like everybody knows what the show they're on, and everybody is kind of like a little bit in awe. There is this level, especially because when I went in there, remember, they hadn't aired the first season yet, so nobody knew anything about it. Like, none of the actors had been. I mean, Anson, I guess, had done a little bit of Pike, so he was a little bit in, and he, and he's had a pretty great career. So, but the others, were especially Ethan. I think Ethan, right, who plays Spock. He, I'm like, dude, you're about to be Spock. You're Spock. You're about to be known as Spock. Like, you understand that there's only two other people, I guess, that have played that role, and one of the most famous roles in all of television history. And he's cool. I mean, he was really great and very gracious, and he knows the responsibility. But I was there right before their lives were all about to change. But again, everybody knows they're doing Star Trek, so there is this like, yeah, man. Every once in a while, everybody you look at each other, you're like, yeah, man, we're doing Star Trek. Like, there is that level and it's exciting, because it's like very rare that you get to sometimes when you're working on these shows, it just feels like, nobody's going to see this, or it's just the same old thing or whatever. Sometimes you feel that way, even though you try to do good work, but there's little times when you just kind of feel uninspired, and it's just great to have good energy, especially from people that have been there for a while and are enjoying themselves.
So you mentioned you work with a lot of sophisticated equipment, the AR wall. Does it all work smoothly, or are there times that you have breakdowns? And then what do you do as a director? I mean, do you have a tech support on site, or what happens?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was kind of raised in the indie world, like most, filmmakers, were like, you're doing things yourself, and if the camera breaks, you have to figure out what happened. You have to figure it out, or get your friend's camera or whatever it is. Usually happens with audio, like the things that I've done. There's always audio problems because you're always trying to make do with the cheapest equipment and whatever. But no, I mean, look, on these sets, there's a sophisticated machine that has been built to to help with these issues. Like the AR wall was something where, like, because that's the first time I'd worked with that, and there's a lot of people there. I mean, there's a whole bank of like desktop computers with people on there, and each person has to do a certain thing because it's not only just projecting it and all that stuff, but it's also calibrating it to the camera, because you want to you have to make they work a long time on making the surface and the seam, like because there's a seam there obviously between the surface of the soundstage and then the back wall. So that seam in between, they're always tweaking it lighting wise, and so it takes a while. There is, and then sometimes things just go wrong. I mean, nothing really happened on this one, but there were delays. Like sometimes we were behind schedule on the wall, the AR wall, because something they couldn't figure it out. I mean, it's you realize how like new the technology is. You know what I mean? Like, these people are like doing like cutting edge stuff. There aren't that many AR walls out there, so it's it's very experimental. So there is a little bit of like kind of alchemy that has to be done. But everybody is experienced and they know that they have backups. So you rarely run into a situation where you're like, completely stalled, because of a technical problem. I mean, so I've sometimes you have like something happens where you're like, you have a big crane and the crane, something is wrong. The head is not communicating, or, they troubleshoot and you have to, you're like, all right, I need the crane. But if you don't have it done in, the AD and I if we don't have it done in 20 minutes, we got to move on another way. So you try to come up with, all right, let's lay dolly track and try to do kind of the similar thing that we were trying to do with the crane, with the dolly. And so, or do the steady cam move or whatever. So, you always have to have a backup plan. It's the same thing with when you're directing actors and, you come in every scene, you come in with a sort of a blocking, like, okay, I'm going to have this person come in this door, and then this person's going to get up. They're going to meet here. They're going to move over here. And a lot of times, you at least have to have an idea, because then you can think about, okay, this is the camera move I'm going to do here. This is the coverage I'm going to do for the scene. I'm going to go through the window, whatever it is, or have a wide shot looking up because the ceiling is cool. But then, you get to the set and, the actors sometimes, they always have their own opinions. And sometimes, you have to it's a collaboration, so sometimes they're like, I wouldn't come in through this door. I would come in through here because I've been this and that. And sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. You have to kind of push back a little bit, but everybody, usually you kind of come in quickly to the blocking and then you do a rehearsal and then they can light it, So that's that. You just got to be flexible, but you have to have a plan of your own in order to be flexible enough to change your plan, because then you can see, okay, yeah, I can still do what I wanted to do for the next scene, even if we're going to go this way. So you just have to you have to have a plan, for sure. You can't just wing it.
So speaking of that, we have about 2 minutes left. I have two final questions for you. The one is, who enjoyed keeping it the lightest on set for your episode?
Wait, what?
Who enjoyed keeping things the lightest the most on your episode?
Like just as far as like mood,
yeah, joking, just like breaking down 10 scenes. Right when it's when it's hour 15 and someone needs a joke just so everyone can decompress.
It's kind of a funny show because it sort of comes from everybody. Like they're sometimes it's Anson, sometimes any of them. They have they're serious because you have to be kind of serious to the things that are happening are serious. It's not like it's not like you're doing a comedy, obviously. But I think that they're either the actors or George, the AD, had a good sense of humor. Sometimes just sometimes they're again, like your work, like they have a phaser in their hand, and sometimes there's like these little moments where you feel like little kids. So there are these little things like, oh, where do I point that? It's just like little, what do I do? How do I unpack this? And, you kind of get in the idea of like, again, you're having so much fun. You're like little kids playing. So there are these little moments where everybody kind of sees what, is, the kind of the absurdity of what you're doing. It happens on almost every show. Like, we're just sitting here in front of these cameras and getting paid, and there's 50 people behind there, and there's lights, and we're thousands of dollars a minute are being spent to do this, and sometimes you see it's a little silly, but on this, the set was not tense. It was very light, and there wasn't really much need for obviously every show has 10 situations, but it seems like everybody was kind of on the same page. There wasn't anybody that was like kind of puffing and puffing around, and everybody seemed to know where they were headed and kind of going there together. You know what I mean? And also, I mean, as a director like you, sometimes there's a little there's definitely this kind of social climate, this kind of social scene around the show. And as a director, you're only there for a few weeks, so you kind of get to know a little bit of the dynamics. And usually you get into a situation, maybe sometimes where some people start talking, just complaining and stuff. But as a director, though, I'm like, that's not what I'm here for, unless it's affecting my episode. I usually stay away. But I'm very light-hearted on the set, and I'm always ready to, like, with a joke or make fun of myself or do something stupid. So you can you have like these little valves that you can kind of release some of the pressure at certain points, and that's part of being a director, I think, is like either knowing when it's time to like get light, and when it's time to like, let's get moving, we're like missing, we're losing time, and what's going on, why aren't we shooting, you know what I mean? So there, there's kind of you always have to walk that line.
I want to be respectful of your time, so one final quick question is, at the end of filming the episode, were you as a director given anything as a token or some type of memento from having directed the episode?
They sent me, I mean, there's always like wrap gifts, for the directors at the end of the season. So they sent me these really cool, expensive sweatpants, like kind of pants that you can wear around the house. And it has like a big Strange New Worlds, season 2 logo on it, which is really cool. But it's one of those, it's weird because like it's one of those sets where you obviously can't take anything off the set, even something little is, you can't do that. And and I have so many pictures because I would just want, part of the, the most fun I had was like when the main unit, when I was doing prep, and part of prep is, especially when there's existing sets, is you got to go onto the sets and like figure out where you're going to shoot things and where they're going to come out, and what like in the med bay, like in the medical bay, like which bed is she going to lay on, like which bed is Uhura going to lay on, like just stuff like that, has to be worked out, and what hallway they're going to come out of, and that whole thing, like, where is the shuttle bay? And that scene that we were talking about earlier with all of them, like, we've never, I have to ask people, like, have they established where the shuttle bay is? No, not really. I'm like, okay, so let's put a shuttle bay thing on this door, and that's where they'll walk out of toward the shuttle bay, So there's always things like that, but I love like just going to the set by myself and walking around and just seeing the art, and this set especially, like just the artistry of like, all the little props and stuff. So you can't take anything off the ship of the episode, but
officially,
I think they sent me the chair back that said Eduardo Sanchez, director. I think I have that. If not, sometimes they keep it. Like, if it's a good sign if they keep it, because then maybe
they're going to call you back.
They're going to call you back. That's a good sign. But I don't think I got that, because I have a picture. And basically it happens with other shows, especially when they end, they give you the chair back. It's kind of a cool thing. But no, man, I mean, it's one of those things. The only thing I can take is just like the memories, and I don't think I took. I mean, I definitely could have taken like some little token from set dressing, especially on the planet and stuff. But I don't think I did. I just again, like, there was this. To me, it's like it's almost like visiting a church. You know what I mean? Like, these sets, and like just the artistry in these sets, and the fact that they actually look like spaceships from the outside, because this has monitors everywhere and lights, and just this. It looks like you're going into like a computer almost, and then you're like inside this Enterprise and these hallways, and so I would just walk around, and like try not to drool, going to They had Spock's because they use the private quarters, other than Captain Pike's. The other ones, they all rotate. They have the same setting. They have the same set, and they make it, all right, we have a thing for Spock's room. We need Ortega's room. And the previous episode, they had a scene with Spock. So, you're in Spock's room, and you see his, the stuff he has, decorations. And I'm just like, it's just so cool. It's so cool to like be, I don't know, and obviously it's all make believe, but the idea of like, you're in the presence of people like Leonard Nimoy, and then that character, and you're sitting in their room, like somebody has thought of like, what would Spock's room look like, you know what I mean? and there's like a picture of, like, I don't know what it's called. It's like one of these little thing he plays. They had it in one of the, and I took a picture of it. Just like little stuff like that just freaks me out. But no, unfortunately, I couldn't steal anything from this set. I didn't get a chance to do that
for this episode, but maybe when they call you back, which I believe they will based on the quality of the episode we just witnessed, maybe then you can grab something. Eduardo,
Yeah.
thank you so very much for being on the show. Do you want to tell people what your gram or where your Twitter is so people can find you? Because you got a lot of stuff coming up. For example, TV Guide named The Horrors of Dolores Roach one of the must-see TV, and I believe you direct at least 1 or 2 episodes, I think.
Yeah, I directed the last 2. Yeah, I'm really excited about that one, man. It's a Blumhouse and Prime. And they joined up to do this little, and Justina Machado is amazing. All the cast is amazing. So yeah, it's a cool little show it's out now. The whole series, the whole first season is out there. So I hope that one gets renewed and they call me back. But yeah, man, if I get back on the Star Trek set, hopefully I'll be able to, take a little trinket or something. But yeah, I mean, I hope they call me back for a bunch of different times. So hopefully they will. Fingers crossed. And thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate the call.
Oh, thank you for taking time out of the vacay to join us. And again, based on the quality of the episode, I am sure you'll be called back, and hopefully you'll consider coming back and joining us on the show when that happens. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Let me know.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for joining us here at Movers and Shakers Unlimited.
Yeah. See you guys.
Peace and long life.
Peace.
And thank you, viewers, for staying with us just a few extra minutes. I believe it was totally worth it. The very gracious Eduardo Sanchez, who has given us some time out of his vacation to be with us. And thank you. If you are at shore leave, I hope that you stop by my co-host Josh Pritchett's table. He has a new book, which I hope you will consider acquiring for yourselves. And he also was in a fabulous cosplay yesterday for, I believe, Farscape. My name is Chris Pabon. You can find me at Verde Cosplay. My hope is I will see all of you back here again next week when we talk about Strange New Worlds. Until then, on behalf of myself, the production team, and Josh Pritchett, peace and long life.